Hi guys, welcome back to Lamore Apothecary. I am Bella, and I decided that I wanted to do a video on a question that I get asked a lot on my Instagram, and that is connecting with the ancestors, or Egun, as we call them in my tradition of Santeria. Well, First, the first thing that I always tell people is before you start looking to some of these alternative traditions, before you start looking at deities, before you calling in goddesses and the moon goddess and Hindus and Buddha and Orisha and Loa, the first thing that you should be doing is connecting with your spiritual court, your spirit guides, and your ancestors. They are, as I was taught in my previous spiritual house by some phenomenal spiritual mentors of Santeria and some phenomenal mediums in clairvoyancy, is that they are your first line of defense. They are your first line of intercessory. They are the go-between between our world and the spiritual world. And for what I know in Santeria is that the Orisha won't even listen to you if you don't have a connection with the ancestors. They are honored first. They are honored always. And the Orisha honor the ancestors. The Loa honor the ancestors. Hinduism has ancestral practice. Eastern cultures have ancestral practice. It is a very, very important practice because who's better to protect you from the spiritual realm than those that are connected to you by blood? Egun are your ancestors that are connected to you by blood. These are your grandparents, your parents, if you're someone who has parents that are transitioned, your aunts, your uncles, your great great grandparents, all of the ancestors that are connected to you in your blood lineage. And then the second part of that is your spiritual guides. Your spiritual guides, I feel, are some of the most special and most important connections that you can have with spirit, because these are spirits that may or may have not had human lives, but they choose or they are allotted with protecting you, with guiding you from the spiritual realm. And because they have no blood relation to you, I feel like this is a very special connection because they have no reason to protect you other than their own repentance, or maybe other than following the guide of the Most High. These are spirits that are just in your life. And what I've found and what I've been taught is that spirits can come into your life and guide you through a situation. They don't always have to be with you your entire life. You could be going through some very, very tough depression and some very, very like a heartbreak that's just got you really down. And there's a spirit that connects with you and helps you through that. And once you're through that, that spirit moves on and go help someone else. And then there's your spiritual court. Your spiritual court, I believe from what I've been taught, that your spiritual court are spirits that have been with you from the moment of your inception, from the moment that your soul became fused with your new incarnation. These are spirits that have been with you. And so when connecting with the spirit guides and the ancestors, the first and most important thing that you probably should do, if you're serious, is to set up what we call in my tradition the Boveda. The Boveda, or which I believe is like a Latin term for ancestor altar, is the lighthouse for spirit. It is the lighthouse for you and spirit to come together on the earth plane. This is your place for meditation. This is your place of communication. This is where you should go when you're feeling lost, when you're depressed. These is the place and the parameters for spirit communication. So when setting up an ancestor's altar, the first thing you want to start with is the glasses of water. The glasses of water, from what I was taught, is spirit's way of traveling from the spirit realm to the earth realm. And as you can see behind me, these are all of my glasses. And the first thing that you want to do is, the first thing that I would assist, or what is the word that I'm looking for? Advise my clients to do when they ask me these questions is to start with 3 glasses of water. That's how my previous spiritual house and previous spiritual mentors taught me. You start with 3 glasses of water. 1 glass, which would be the tallest glass or the biggest glass, would represent the heavens and the spiritual realm. And the next glass that I always tell people is for your spirit guides. And then the next glass is for your ancestors. We start with 3 glasses because not all the time, not everyone that sets up an ancestor altar knows what ancestors are there with them very closely, or what spirit guides are with them very closely. So if you just start with 3 glasses, 1 for all of your spirit guides that are there, 1 for all of your ancestors that are with you, and 1 for the heavens, then you would be good, and you can start with your spiritual practice of ancestral worship. So the next thing is, putting things there, photos. If we're going to put photos, let's put photos of ancestors of good character. From what I was taught, we do not want to put a photo of Uncle Jim Bob, who was, let's say, an axe murderer. Because usually how a person was in life, their spirit is kind of that same person. They're still the same. They still have the same desires. So having lighthouse and attracting negative energy will just give you the negative aspects of this whole situation. So we only want to put ancestors of good character. We only want to have classes for ancestors of good character. So because those are the ancestors, those are the benevolent spirits that we know will guide us the correct way and don't try to sway us somewhere else. When you are adding photos of your family, please, 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 please be sure that you are only adding photos of the deceased. You do not want to add photos of the living onto an altar that is dedicated to the deceased, because that is almost like you're calling death to the living. This is just a special place for those that have transitioned and those who are of the spiritual realm. You do not want to put your favorite picture of grandma with your cousins who are still alive. If you love that picture of grandma, please make a copy and then cut grandma out and then put grandma on the Boveda, so that you are just honoring grandma. You are not calling death or calling that to a living person. So things that you could put on your Boveda, you could put candles. I always put white candles. Over in the corner, I have a crown chakra candle and a third eye candle, because of course this is my spiritual lighthouse. I have pictures of my ancestors that I know are close to me. I have representation of my spirit guides that I have grown to be connected to. Another question that I get is, how do I know what ancestors to put? Well, in my tradition, we practice a spiritismo. A spiritismo has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Santeria. It has nothing to do with Christianity, although some of the prayers that we say to invoke spirit are Christian Catholic prayers. But I always tell people that I feel like that is because we are descendants of slaves who had to mask and hide their own practices behind the traditions and the religions of their slave owners, but they did so in a way that preserved the traditions of all of this. So how I was introduced to my spiritual courts were going to misas at my spiritual house. Misas is when the mediums invite us all there, and we essentially have a day where we invite spirit to come and connect with us and come in to give them light and come in to give messages that they may have for us. We give them opportunity and space to freely roam amongst us in that space. So that is how I was able to pinpoint which one of my ancestors are closer to me, which one of my spirit guides are closer to me. And I kind of kept my ancestors, Boveda, or my ancestors' altar, to those spirits. I have my grandmother Rose here in the back. She is my paternal grandmother who I didn't get to have the pleasure of having a connection with her in life. So I am delighted and honored to bring light to her spirit. I have my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, and, my grandmothers, my great great grandmothers who I don't have pictures of, and my aunt who I don't have pictures of. I put their names, and I have a list of names of my ancestors, my great great grandparents, my grandparents, both paternal and maternal. I have a representation of my closest spirit guide, which is my gypsy spirit guide. I call her Yasmina. And then, so once all of those things are set in place, my Boveda began to grow. The more and more I connected with spirit, I started to add more glasses to represent those spirits. I added glasses to represent spirits individually, but you don't have to have individual spirits glasses unless you know that these are in your spiritual court and they're your closest Agun and they're your closest guides. Give them their own glass, but make sure that you're doing it in odd numbers. You only want to have 3, 5, 7, 9 for going forward and forward. I stopped the book at 9 because that's where I am in my spiritual practice. That's where I am in my Santeria walk. So I have only 9 glasses, and these represents my different spiritual guides and my different ancestors that I am very, very close to. So one question that I got on my Instagram the other day was, do you have to always keep offerings on your ancestors' altar? Well, I don't know what the other Instagram witches or the other YouTube people, what their idea of this is, but for me, your spirit guides know what you can and cannot afford. They are just honored to have a place where they can go and be with you and commune with you. A glass of water for that spirit is perfectly fine. Fresh flowers when you can afford them is fine. I keep little things like non-perishables. It was just the Day of the Dead and Halloween, so I put little candies for my ancestors. When I make food for myself, I always add food. There's not food always sitting here. It's usually when I cook for myself or when I know that my spirits need to be fed, then I will cook a big dinner for them, especially when they ask me for it. I have things like here with my grandfather. My grandfather liked to gamble and he liked to dice, so I have cards and dice. So you'll put things that your ancestors enjoyed. So if your grandmother loved orchids, keep orchids or keep a representation or even a painting of orchids near her. Or if she, like wine. She was a wine drinker, and grandma had a little red glass of red wine at the end of the night when she was done and had to deal with Pawpaw. You could keep a closed bottle of wine. So you could keep non-perishables that you never have to throw away. But as far as keeping food and things like that, do what you can. Do what you can afford. Don't break the bank to try to have this elaborate altar to have this elaborate thing, because you see that with all of these Google witches or these Instagram witches. Do what you can. It is the act of love that the spirit guides see. It is the act of you acknowledging their presence. Even if you just put incense is an offering, their water is an offering, a can of soda if your grandpa likes soda or your mom likes soda. With my gypsy, I keep all of my tarot cards and things at my ancestor altar because the representation of her is there. But also I keep representations of her on my work altars as well. I've dressed her and I have given things that she asked for through mediums. So if you do not or you're not practicing a religion like Santeria, or you're not practicing a religion like voodoo, or you're just not an espiritismo, but you are a bruja and you do want to connect with your ancestors, start with the ancestors altar. They're your first line of defense. I always tell people when they're coming asking me Santeria questions, when they're coming asking me all these types of questions about deities, the first thing I always say is, how is your relationship with your ancestors? Because you don't need deities, and you don't, because in Santeria, this religion, this tradition is thousands of years old. It is tried and true, but there are steps to this religion. There are things that you must do. And having a candle that says Oshun does not put Oshun on an altar, because she's a living spirit. So there are things that you have to do to even receive Oshun and Ifa and Santeria, but you do not have to have any of those things with your spirit guides and your ancestors. They are yours. So you can call on, they should be your first line of defense. When you're doing spiritual work, when you're doing calling on, you need more energy other than your own ashe, and you need a little bit of oomph, call grandma. My grandmother Pinky, I have been told by my medium friends that I am a reincarnate of her. Partially, my grandmother Pinky passed away in 1981. I was born in 1983. Our charts, our birth charts, synchronized. She is someone that I have always saw in my mind's eye, but I know that these are not actual memories of her because I wasn't even born when she was walking the earth, but she is so close to me. And I honor her. So that is all that you really need when you start out in your spiritual bruja practice. You don't need deities. You don't need any of those things. Your ancestors are the ones who would lead you to the right tradition. They're the ones who would lead you to the right course of action and the right spiritual path. So I hope that this video, I don't want it to be too long-winded. I hope that this video gave you a little bit more information on connecting with your ancestors. I'll have more videos on this subject coming soon. I just wanted to give a little synopsis on that. If you have any questions, comments, please leave your comment down below, and I would do my best to try to get back with you. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, I am Lamore Apothecary. My email is lamoreapothecary@gmail.com. So reach out to me, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.